Marshawn Bland at the Art Center of Wilmington Island. We are so glad to offer a way to stay connected and continue creating art. Check out our new list of art at home kits for both kids and adults, available for curbside service. Keep visiting our Facebook page and website to see the latest options. We will post them as quickly as we can make them. Each kit contains everything you need to complete a beautiful painting at home: a pre-sketched canvas, an inspiration picture, paint, brushes, and a palette, and a link to watch a tutorial to follow along. All you will need to provide would be the paper towels and a wrench cup for your brushes. Now that you have your supplies, please follow the link to watch our step-by-step tutorial. Time to paint. The image that we have in front of us here that has been drawn is a pair of daylilies. So we're going to start on that background space first. The colors that you have in your package would be the colors that you see here on my palette. So we have white and yellow and a cadmium red, a magenta color for our pink. We have an alizarin crimson for our dark red. We have a purple or a dark deep violet. And then we have yellow ochre, which is yellow and our gold mixed, it's a goldy color with the yellow and brown mixed together. And then we have a medium green and an aqua green. So we've got a good many colors so that we can make a bright, colorful painting today. We're going to start in the background, and I'm going to use a 1-inch brush to do our background with first. I'm going to dip it in the water, and then I'm going to just dab it on the paper towel just to make enough of the water available on the brush so that it doesn't drip. So we have just the right amount. And then I'm going to go over, and my goal in the background is to make as many different greens and blues and yellows as I can by mixing those colors together while the paint is wet. So what I'd like to be able to do is first, for instance, just take and brush on some yellow. And while that is still wet, I'd like to brush on some of the green. And you can see as I mix that aqua green with that yellow, I get a new color, a different color. So I want to do that over and over again until all my background space is filled. I will add other colors as I work that same technique with the brilliant green. You can see that's a brighter green. And then I will also add some of the yellow ochre in some places so it won't be quite so bright. And then I will add in a little bit of purple just to add some color to it as we paint too, because it's really pretty when we add the purple to the yellow. It makes a beautiful brownish color, and it looks very natural, and it's really great for this type of painting since it's an outside picture. So I'm going to go back now to the beginning. I gave you sort of a summary about what's going to happen, but now I'm going to add more yellow to my brush, and then as soon as I pick up the yellow, I'm going to add the aqua to it so that you can see how I'm going to just pull those colors together, and as it's wet, I can blend. So as I mix the colors, I'm making sure that I'm covering my canvas, and I'm going to begin adding more green over here. If you'll work in small sections while your paint is wet, it'll allow you to do more blending. If you do a little bit on one side and then a little bit on the other side, by the time you get back around, your paint will be dried. So it'll be a little bit easier if you just work in small areas. So I'm going to work on this top right hand side of the canvas first before I move over and do anything else. I'm going to add a little white into the yellow to make some of this a little bit lighter as I begin to paint with that. Now what you're going to notice is as you begin to do these streaks like this, back and forth, up and down, If you will keep those all going the direction up and down, vertical, that will make a better look for your space that's behind the daylilies. If you jumble it up too much, it may be a little chaotic. So we want to make sure that your painting looks natural and peaceful. And so the way to do that is to keep all of these strokes going up and down or in the same direction. Now you can see that I'm not mixing my paint too much on my brush. I'm just picking up a little paint, painting with it, picking up a little bit more paint, painting with it. And that way I can get all these beautiful colors in the daylily background painting. Now, when I go and I see, like, this is the top of the azalea balloon here, and then this is the leaf that's coming in beside it. When I got to that space, I decided that I was going to paint over it, but with a little care, making sure that it was a little bit lighter. It's lighter in color and also in the application of putting the paint on. That way underneath I can still see the lines that I need to go back and put the detail into that daylily. So now as I'm coming around this corner, I'm going to go all the way around the flower because all of this is the green background space. And as I'm moving around, I'm just adding more yellow and more green. And I'm making sure that all of my brush strokes are going in the same direction. But if I want to get around the edge of the daylily, if I go and I just get a little water on my brush and then go back into my paint and mix that up, it really flows nicely. I can lay down the whole brush. See the width of the brush? I can just lay that down, and then I can fill up the space and get the grasses going in that up and down pattern. And remember, as you go, if you will mix in the different colors while it's wet. So I picked up a little yellow, and then I picked up a little bit of the aqua. And as I make those streaks go upward, then you can see they look very, very grassy. I want this area to really be a bright green around the daylily so that the other grasses show up that are closer to the daylily. So we'll change that out just a little bit. So all of these spaces that go up to that very first blade of grass that's a little bit larger or more of a yellow green. So then as soon as I get to the blade of grass that's a little darker and the color changes so that we can see the difference between the grasses, I'm going to go in and make this one the aqua color. So you don't even have to change the color on your brush at all. You just go in and pick up the different color. And because this brush is wide, you can just take the edge of the brush and just use the end of it to paint the detail that you want, and see how now you can come right on up and make the part of the blade of grass that's right above the azalea too. So you can have that part as a continuation going up underneath the flower. Then I'm going to return back to the yellow green and add the yellow green up underneath the flower. As you can see, I'm going to do right there. Then you can see that that other stem shows up, and it's really fun to look at. It's really easy to see and to spot out. So now I have the yellow greens around the aqua green color. Looks really nice. So now I'm going to move, and I have another aqua green leaf to make. This is sort of a leafy stem, so it's going to be coming just like the first one I did. So I'm putting the aqua back on my brush, and I'm just sort of going like in a zigzag motion to get the stem so that it shows up and I get a line on the edge. And then I'm skipping where you see the flower, and then I'm coming around and going in between the daylilies top and bottom, and then I'm coming up and overlapping over the top, so you can see how it just continues on up there. You are going to have small brushes in your packet that you can use. if you don't feel comfortable using this big wide brush to get in the detail, then you can certainly change over. We've got a really tiny, small, zero size brush. You could go in with that one and you could paint the tip on the leaf if you wanted to and just get really fine in there. I generally like using a large brush to do all my beginning painting with first, so I don't get too much detail in. I can always tweak it later and add a little bit more of the detail with a fine brush if I wanted to, because now I'm still working just in the broad area. So to continue in this background space, I'm going to go back and add more of the yellow. So I'll have the blue-green color that goes in between the daylily and that green turquoisey leaf that I have. And then then I can go to the other side of it and complete that area too. So you can just see that aqua color really stands out in the middle of that space like we want it to. So that is a fun way to get all of the colors to really look good together. Okay, so the next thing that we have is another grassy piece that's growing right up beside the daylilies stem. So I'm going to come in there and I'm going to make that a little bit darker. So I'm going to use the base of green. I'm going to pick that up, but then I'm going to go over and get actually purple and mix the purple with the green. And you can see once I put that on there how you can really see it get darker. The purple's a beautiful color to use if you're trying to shade a color. I really like using it better than black, especially with something like this in nature. So if you can get by with changing and using black for a shadow color, it really is a lush color to use for your outside shadows. So I put that in and you can see we've just got a little bit of space in between where you could add another green just for filling in space for another area that's sort of grassy. And in that space we can add a little bit of the yellow green. So now you can see. But the fun thing about this is that as you begin to go back and put more grasses in there, all of those just sort of go together with the rest of them. So as long as you have like a blue green and a yellow green and then a darker green with using the purple as a base, you'll get a real good look of what is going on here with this background area. Now as we move on over, we're going to connect this yellow space to this space. So I'm going to pick up more yellow and more white and make a greenish color by adding that green to it. And so we don't want it to look too yellow, but we do want it to be differences between the yellow greens and the blue greens. So I'm going to add more of the medium yellow and medium green as I come down and fill in this space. You can see I have a bud for a daylily right here, so I'm going around it. But each one of the little brush strokes that I make, I want it to look like, I want it to appear like that it is a grassy part of the background space. So the more I change the colors, the better you're going to like that. I picked up just a little bit of the yellow ochre now that I can put in this space, and that way it'll change it up and give it a real natural look too. So just a little bit of the yellow ochre. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the aqua green in there. And if I mix the aqua green with the yellow green, you can see how it changes ever so slightly, but it's just enough change in the green that it gives us a different color to look at. So that's always awesome when we can come up and make a new color. So with the colors that you have in your kit, you'll be able to make a lot of different values and colors of the greens and the blues that you have. So I'm continuing to fill in that space, and I'm making sure that I'm using my brush strokes so that it looks very grassy. And from time to time, I'm going back and working on the first space that I started with to make sure that I'm blending and using all the colors throughout the whole background as I move across. All right, I want a grayish color to go in because I can't have everything being that bright. So I know that purple and yellow ochre are complements of each other, and they make a really beautiful gray color, which is the gray that I just made right here. And you can see in this case it's a grayish green, and it looks great against that bright green color. So I'm going to carry that now throughout the bottom area where the grass is growing out from the earth, and you can see how natural that looks when I add that into the area in the background. So I'm going to continue to move over, and you can see I have a bloom here that hasn't quite opened. So as I begin to pull up and go over to my stems, I'm going to fill in all of that space, and then I will be ready to make the places that are inside between the two flowers, or the bud and the flower. So I'm just using my brush, I'm turning the edge of it to the side just a little bit and going in between, so I can get in between the flower and the new balloon that's getting ready to open. Don't forget the aqua green is very pretty, it's very bright, and makes the color really stand out of this daylily that we're going to put. So I just picked up a brush full, I loaded my brush with the aqua green, and now I'm able to put a lot of that color in this space. But because I already have so much of the other yellow greens on the canvas, it really just blends and gives a real good look to that space. You can see we have more leaves in this area, so it's just a matter of making different areas look like different leaves that are overlapping each other. So the overlapping part is really an artist element that they use to show depth, and so we can make one leaf look like it's in front of another leaf. And so we'll do that by making one of them darker and one of them lighter so we can see. So I'm actually going to go in with the purple to make my dark, because I would like this stem right here to be the darkest. And you can see it really stands out when I mix the purple and the green together. It really gives the look of it being natural. And that's what happens to these stems as they start moving into, getting older and start showing the age as they go up into this area. You can see I'm going to go back and work on this one now. It's the purple, adding that a little bit to this one and to that one. And then that way you can see that we have them both just alike in the colors. I like that gray in there a lot, so I'm going to add it over here a little bit more in the grassy area. And I'm just going to use the width of the brush and literally just take all the colors that are on my brush and just pull those in an upward direction. And you can see how many colors I had on there. There's the aqua green, and there's the brilliant green, and there's the purple. And so all of those colors are really peeping out when I lay my brush down on its side and let all of them come to the surface. So now I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow and use that to tie all of the canvas together. I want to make sure that I have enough of the paint and the dark colors and the greens to keep the canvas covered over here on this side too. So I'm going to pick up those areas, and now I have most of the bottom completed. So I'm coming back over here and just playing around with some of those spaces until I feel like that it all works together, because that's exactly what we need to happen. And then I can see where I might want to put a little bit more of the turquoise or aqua green. See how I can just add those in. I can add as much of those colors as I want. It's my painting, and in this case it'll be your painting, so you can have fun picking out some of those to do for yourself that are a little bit different even than mine. I'm taking this brush and I'm using the aqua and the green together, and that even changes it. That's even a different color that you can really see how bright it is and how much it can stand out against the pink and the purple that you see right here in the flower edge that we're getting ready to paint. So as I'm bringing that color on over, I'm going to make sure that in some places I make it darker. So this is going to be my dark corner. So I'm going to just keep painting, and you can see that grassy look that I keep bringing in by using that stroke of just going up and out from wherever my beginning is. In this case, it's right around the daylily bloom. Now this is one of the leaves that I want to have the turquoisey color, because I'm using that as a constant that goes all the way through the painting. So I'm going to come back in here now and add the turquoise on my brush and put it in. And then most of my canvas for the background will be covered except for this small little space at the top, and I'll finish that up. Now I'm going to go back and add some of the yellow and white. Remember, I still have the turquoise on my brush. I've not washed out much at all, and that keeps all those colors flowing. Keeps me making new colors every time I use my brush, and that's a great thing. So now I'm using just the tip of the brush to go in and make the edge of the daylily and continue to make the blades of grass. So all this is bright and really showy. And now we get to the space where I can just about feel like I have all the canvas ready for the flowers to come in and go right on top of. Now, as you remember, anytime you're painting over a drawing, that you can go right up to the line if you want to and cover it up. If you lightly just pass it over with a light coat of paint, you can see the drawing up underneath, and then you can have it to use when you get ready to put your paint on that object. So I painted very lightly around that area so I can still see all the spaces where I need to put my detail back on that flower. So now I'm just going to go through and play just a minute and see if there are any other places or colors where I want to put yellows or aquas or greens. And I can add just a few more in. And then I actually want to add some black into the purple now, because I would really like for it to be darker in some of the places, especially over here in this corner. So I'm just going to take black, put a little purple in it. Remember, I still have all the green on my brush. So now as I begin to mix that dark color, which is black, in with this blue and purple, you can see how much depth I'm going to get by pushing all that space back against and away from the daylily. So I'm going to continue going not evenly across the bottom, but across the bottom enough so that I can get that fill of space. And then as I move this way, I won't have quite as much of it as I have on this first left-hand side, where there's not quite as much of the light hitting. We're going to use this as our light source coming in from this way. Okay, so now I have a good feel of the flowers in, so I'm going to put away the big brush. Remember, it's really easy if you just take and open up your paper towels and put the extra paint inside, and then that you keep your outside clean so you won't get your fingers dirty. And if you wash out your brush, just agitate it down across the bottom and then tap it dry with the paper towel to get most of the paint off, the water off with the paint, so that you can save it and get ready to paint something or use a different brush. So now I'm gonna go from the bigger inch brush to the smaller brush. And on this brush, what I want to do is put enough of the detail in these blades of grass that are standing up against the daylilies. So they're not necessarily the grasses around the daylily, but they are the leaves to the daylily. So I want to make sure that this aqua color that I have in here really stands out. And now since I have a smaller brush, I can brush those in and make sure that I get even the points that I need. I can just go right up and let this brush go from a thicker point to a very thin point by the amount of pressure that I actually put on the brush. So I can go thicker down at the bottom, and then as I move up to the top, I can not press quite as hard, and then it will just fade out. I just push against the canvas and then release, and then if I do that, you can see that the canvas is affected by the pressure that I push down on it and how much paint it will actually accept. So I want to make sure that I get a little bit, I want to put a little grass up underneath that goes between this daylily and this petal. So this is the middle part of the daylily, and this is just an extra little petal. So I want to make sure that I get that identified so I don't lose it or cover it up. And then I want to come back and make sure that with the grass that I come in and identify the edge all the way up to the daylily. And that way, when I get ready to actually paint the daylily, I'm sure that I've got all the background covered in that I want to. And when I get ready to do the daylily, I don't have any blank spaces left that are just open canvas, because I don't want to have to go back and paint around that to get the detail in. So now, once I have detailed in that work for the grasses, I feel like that I am ready to move on in and start the daylily. So I'm going to wash out the green off of my brush, and then I'm going to tap it dry, get all the paint off of it, and a little bit of the water. And then I'm ready to start the flower. I'm actually going to start it here as if it were actually beginning to open up and bloom. And there is more yellow and white than there is orange or red to begin with. So I'll start with that as I begin to paint this area. And you can see there's a lot of yellow, and here's white. And actually what I want to be able to do is make those colors look like that they're actually lines that are really close together that make the daylily its form that it actually has. So I went in and really with the brush, just like I did on the big brush out here where I was making the grasses, now I'm actually making the flower. I'm really almost sculpting it with the brush as I begin to streak each one of those colors. In that case, it was just the yellow and the white. But now I'm going to move on over and I'm going to add another color, and this is going to be that alizarin red. That's the dark red, but I'm going to put some of the orangey red, that cadmium red in there with it, and then I'm going to do a little bit more streaking. These are little, really small, fine streaks, but they're easy to do if you just turn this brush on its side and then just lay it down and pull it across. You can get some really fine little detailed lines. But it's just a matter of getting control over your brush. Push down on the brush and move your fingers down so that you can have control, just like you're signing your name with a pencil, instead of being up here loose, because we don't want to do that. We want to really tighten up and get your fingers down by where the bristles are. So once you do that, you can make these lines that really make the flower look exotic with all those different colors. So in just that one area, we've already put white and yellow, and then we put red and magenta and alizarin. So all of those colors went into that one little space. So we want to continue that same idea with this young little bloom right here that's getting ready to open. So the same colors that I already had on my brush, I'm just using here. I start with yellow first, and I really just paint that space in yellow, and it has the reds and the yellow has the reds and the pinks in it, so I build that. And then that gives me my color base. I'll come back and add my details. I even have a smaller brush that I can do some of the details with in a second. Now this base also has some orange and yellow, so I'll put that in. This is the underside of this leaf. So we'll put the underside in first, and then we'll go to the back side because that's all we can see of this daylily. So now I'm going to take and go away from the oranges and the yellows and go more to the reds and the maroon colors. So I'm actually going to pick up the magenta first, and I'm going to go in with that bright pink color and put it right along the edge of where this is folded back. And then I'm going to pick up the alizarin crimson because that's darker, and I'm going to go right in the middle and just lay down basically an edge, just a line that goes right down the center that shows you the difference, like where it's curled up, because that curl is really important to making that shape. So after we get that alizarin on our brush, there are a lot of places then that we can paint. We can see that this part is the underside, and it is very dark. It is so dark it almost looks like that it's black, but we know it's just a really dark red. So this is the darker red color. I'm going to put that in. I'm just going to follow the lines to know where I put the color. So I fill in the shape like that. So once I have all that space filled in, then I need to come back and actually make it look like that it is a opened flower petal that has like a cup on it. And so for it to be cuppy, it has to have a dark light up underneath it and the light coming in on the top. So to darken that red, what I'm going to do is pick up some of the blue that's right beside it on my palette and add that to it, so you can tell if I've got the darker blue in with the red, how it really makes it look like a dark, deep purple. So that creates a bend that we know that it has, so that bend is very important. Then after I do that, I'm going to come in with maybe I'll just wipe off my brush a little bit and pick up some of the pink, and I can go right in the center. So now I have the alizarin red, identifying most of the color, and then I go back and I put the darker color right up underneath the crease, and then I just add a little bit of the lighter magenta right in the middle, and that really cups over the leaf and makes the petal just what we want it to be. So I'm going to do the same thing. I practiced on this little one that's cupped up here, so now I'm going to do the exact same thing to this one that's open. So the first thing I want to do is pick up the, in this case, the magenta. I'm going to make it really show up. Now this one's turned, so I'm putting in the magenta in the center, and then I'm going to use the alizarin to go on the edge on both sides. So using the same thing I did up here, but in this particular case you can see the, both the top and the bottom of it, or both sides, if you want to think about it like that. So now I've actually put in the dark on the outside and the pink in the middle, just like I did up here, just in a different order because I wanted a little bit more of the pink to show up. Now this petal is actually folded over from here, so that means that this space right here is extended over this one. So you can see that in your drawing, so you're just going to make sure that you carry that all the way over like that. Now once we work on the one behind it, we'll add a little bit more of the highlight to show you how it actually goes. But down here on the corner where it gets a little bit lighter, we're going to actually take the magenta, which is the pink color, we're going to add a little bit of the orangey red to it, and we'll put that right along the edge, right there. And you can see the difference between the oranges and the pinks and the reds if you just lay them on there like that. So I'm gonna wipe off the orange color just a minute and pick up just enough of the white so that when I lay it across the top of this petal, that it shows up like I want it to. And if you look at this, you can tell that it's like a diagonal line, and it runs right across the top of where that petal turns. So all that is very important to making the leaf bend where it is supposed to. So now with the white on the brush, if I put a little bit more of the pink on, and if I want the pink to really stand out, I can shape it up. So now I have alizarin on both sides, I have the magenta in the middle, and then I have the orangey red on the end. And it really makes a perfect little petal. Now to continue this one, the only thing that we have to add to it is the white that we put on the top that separates it from this one. So that's what I'll do now. I'll just put a little bit of that light color right on top. That way when I put this dark color behind here, that petal edge won't get lost, so I can still see my white. Okay, so that's what I'm ready for now. I'm gonna come in all this space and set that up. I have a lot of different colors that I can use, the pink and the orange. I'm gonna really start that pink and orange right here in the center, and then I'm gonna put the alizarin around it because that's where the darker paint goes. So that's literally the magenta and the orangey red that you have in your kit. Then when I have that set up, I can go in and add the alizarin with that paint just right on my brush, and you can tell how much darker the alizarin red is than the other. So I'm going to put that color in, and then using the small edge of the brush, I'm just following the line that is drawn. And if I follow that line around, it makes like a W shape. And then I can go all the way up to that white crease line that I just put in there. And that way I won't forget, and I'll know the difference between those petals. So with the pink, the light color in there, and the dark color, I can just wipe very lightly across, and then I have a great blend across the inside part. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the outside part. So with the alizarin red, I'm going to go in, and I'm going to use the edge of the brush to make the edge of the flower. And I'm going all the way across because it gets dark all the way around. And when I get all the way over to where I started a while ago, then I'll know that that petal is going to be complete as soon as I take my brush and I just take the yellow, the alizarin red, and just blend it right in over the pinky orangey color that I used a while ago, the magenta and the red. So all I do is just take my brush and I just mix it, blend it, push it right down into the center of the flower, very delicately. I just barely touch it, and you can see how the flower just looks like it's now turning. Now the inside part up under here does exactly the same thing. So now while I have that dark red on my brush, I'm going to continue and go up behind that petal. And now you can see the darker look in the corners and the lighter coming up right through the center. I'm going to continue doing that now with the dark color. I'm going to make this petal droop over. There's actually a leaf that comes right in between these two petals, and that just gives it a little interest. So just use the edge of your brush to come in and make that shape look like a little triangle on this side. And then this one, you have a little rounded scoop at the end. And then you have a place that you can add a little bit of the pink color right in the middle and a little bit of orange on the tip, and you're set with that petal. Now we have the one that comes all the way around on the front, and that one changes right here. So where that one changes, we're gonna come in and we're gonna make it lighter with the orange and the pink on this front side that goes down. That'll be the same design for a line, the same direction of line that we used right here when we put this white one in, right here on this side. So this is where we come in. You have a line on your drawing where it separates this part of the front of the flower from that part of the back of the flower. So you can see this flips around and this becomes oranger and or pinker. So I'm just gonna pick up a little bit more of the magenta. I'm even gonna lighten it just a little bit so that I can make sure that I can separate the pink from the orangey red. And so once I do that, then I can put this darker one that's flipped over to the back. And that's basically the alizarin color. So I'm gonna pick up the alizarin and make sure that I put it in this V-shaped little crack right here. Goes right down to where that petal turns. Got all kind of little turns in the flower, which is what makes it so beautiful. But basically all that would be just the alizarin. So we'll put the alizarin crimson there, and then we'll also put it up here right above where it turns. And then in between that, we can add the pink in the center and just bring both of those colors together. And then this petal overlaps that grass. Okay, so that is the beginning of the roundness of that flower. We still have to finish this edge at the bottom. That one is discoloring a little bit on the bottom of this petal, like with age. So literally, I'm just gonna wipe off a little bit of the pink, and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the yellow ochre. I still have some pink on my brush. That way when I put this yellow ochre on here, it just blends a little bit. And then actually I'm gonna pick up some gray that makes it just a little darker. And remember, the gray is the one that I mixed with the purple and the yellow ochre a while ago. So I just picked up yellow ochre, so now I'm picking up a little bit of the purple, and now I'm gonna blend that in, and it just goes right across the bottom and the edge. So I just use this brush to get into the corner, and that way it looks like it has some age on it. Now we're gonna do the same kind of thing to this little bloom that's over here because it hasn't quite opened. So we put the brighter orange and yellows in it a while ago. So now we're gonna go around the edge and we're gonna make it darker. So I'm literally gonna take the purple and the gold, and I'm going to go around the top and the bottom because it's round and the light's coming in right in the center. So that way, when I go around like that, it begins to bulge out in the middle, and it will even more when I put the lighter colors right in the center in just a minute. So that's what I'll do now. I'm gonna go in and, well, I actually wash out my brush so I can get a really light middle in there. I'm gonna start with yellow, and I'll put a little orange in it, and even white to lighten it up even more. And then right in the center, I'm going for something similar to what this color is, going right in the center and putting that color, so it just makes that little bloom pop right out. And then while I have that color, I'm gonna accent this just a little bit with yellow. And then that flower is basically finished, and we can move on and repeat that again in the next flower. So I'm gonna wash out my brush, and I'm gonna do this one first because it's just like the one that I just did. So I'm gonna start with basic, part of putting the yellow color in there. I'll put a little bit of the orangey red around it, and you can see how it just begins to grow right out of the canvas. After I put the yellow and then the orange, I'm gonna add a little bit of pink, just enough so it ties it together. And then I'll go in, after I get a little pink on there, finish it up at the top and then add a little bit of the darker alizarin to make the flower complete. And it will, of course, look like it will be opening soon. And then I'll do just like I did this one with the purple and the gold right around the edge so that it will really stand out and look like it is popping in the middle. In other words, it's really fat in the middle if I put all this dark around the edge of it. So this is purple and gold, and I'll put it on the top and the bottom, and it really makes it bust out in the middle. Okay, now you can also add another little bloom to the edge if you want to. You could have another little small bulb that comes right out there just to add some interest to it. You wouldn't have to put nearly as much detail as you did on that one, but it does add some interest, and I think it's worth taking the time to put that one in there. So now we're going to move over and go to the final flower. So we're going to start in this middle section right here where we started with the yellow and the white while ago. So I'm going to pick up yellow, pick up a little bit of the orangey color. Remember, I'm repeating what I did in this area. So I have yellow coming in, and after the yellow is put in, I'm going to have a little bit of the orangey red color, and then a little white just to make it very high contrasted paint colors between the white, the yellow, and the red. Very stripy looking just by pulling lines, 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 lines. Very stripy looking. And then at the very top of it, I'm going to actually wipe off the brush because this I want to be flaming red, hot pink. So I'm going to mix the magenta in with the alizarin, and I'm really going to make that pop right out against the yellow. So I'm using the line that I see to make the edge of that petal. And then once I make that sort of, this one was sort of a W shape, and this is more like an M shape, it's going up. Then I can blend those colors down into these yellows and oranges, so it looks like it's a nice blend. So I'm just picking up now some fresh orange to put in, and then I'll pick up some fresh pink to put in, and then you can see it just blends together just the way you want it to. Go back and put just a little bit more of the alizarin red right at the top to make it really dark. Now as I begin to come around with the alizarin, I'm going to make the next petal that's right to it, and that's going to be with mostly alizarin. I do have some of those other oranges and yellows on my brush, but not too many, not too much of it, so that way it's easy for me to dominate over with the yellow, with the alizarin red. Then when I get that put on both sides like that, I can easily go back now and add some little pink right in the center, and the pink really stands out against the red. So now I can see both of those. Now I'm going to move over and do this one that's underneath, and I'm going to do that with the alizarin red, and I'm even going to add some of the purple to it to really make it almost black. It's very, very dark. We don't want to use black though, we want to use the red because we want it to look like it is a daylily and not red, not black, but a real beautiful dark red. So it's the alizarin, but it does have a little bit of the purple in there. So we're going to mix that together and fill in all of that space and let it go and overlap right over where we have the beginning of this petal. It just runs right over the top of it. So that dark space is very important, and then that same dark space is going to be in a shape right here that looks like a V. So you'll see that drawn out in your picture, and that space is very important because it's on the back side and it is very dark. Now remember, you have two brushes. You have one that's even smaller, So if this feels like that you can't get into that V shape well enough, just pick up the smaller brush and you can paint it with that. But I like using one that's a little bit bigger so I don't have to be too detailed. I can be a little looser. Okay, so now I have the V shape on that side, and now that I've got it that dark, I'm going to put a little bit of that darker color right up underneath here because I need the same value, and I need the same value right here where that's turned back and out of the sunlight and it is very dark. So I want to be able to do that as well. So now that I have those done, I'm going to go in and add the darker places that are going to come in next on this petal. You can see I'm taking the same shade of red and I'm coming right here on top and putting that color on. And then I can come and change over and put my pink in. So now I'm taking my magenta and I'm coming in right below where I put that dark red and adding the magenta. And then I'm turning the corner, going down. And when I turn the corner, I'm going to add in some of the orange. So I'm picking up the orangey red color that's in there so it gets brighter at the bottom. And you can see how pretty that stands out against the green. And then I'm going to add white to the magenta. And I'm going to lighten up that space just ever so slightly so it shows up really well against that dark color. So a little bit of white with the magenta coming right across the edge. And since I have that light color, I'm going to hit a couple of highlights over here on this other petal. And now that I have the lighter color on my brush, I can come in and from this place right under the Y, I can make it start growing the stem out. So I did it a little bit lighter. Now I'm adding more of the magenta to it. And then after the magenta, I'm going to add more of the alizarin to it. But because I put that light color on first, it's not going to get quite so dark. And that is so that I can show the differences between where the lights and the darks are going. So I've got this one curving on and making a point right here, and you can make that with the brush that you're using, or you can change over and get the little pointed brush if you like that one better. I am going to put a little bit of orange in here where the pink comes and becomes a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to take the orange off and pick up the magenta again, mixed with the alizarin. So a little magenta, a little alizarin, and I'm going to come back in this area, and the reason I want the magenta is because I want this V shape to not get lost. I want to make sure that you can see it. So I am adding just a little bit of the alizarin red to the magenta and then finishing up the top part of that petal. And you can see if you just change the values ever so slightly, you can make them look like that they're bending. Now we do have one of the petals coming up from the back, and it is bright because it's on that side. So I'm going to take the orange and the magenta and stick that right in the center of that space, and that will be our tiny little petal on the back side. And with those colors, I'm going to add a little bit of white to my magenta and just put a little bit in the center so you can tell that it is a petal to match everything else. Now we've got one more petal that's right here before we are finished with the petals, and that is going to be basically the same color with like half of the alizarin red color and half of the magenta color. So I'm going to go in Now you've got all those lines drawn where your detail parts of the stamen are going to be, where the pollen's located. And we're going to, it's easier to me just to cover them up because I know where they're going. I just saw that space. So it's pretty easy for me to go back and to find them. Now I know exactly where they're going to go. So I'll put those on next before I forget. So before I do that, if I've got any places that need to be blended out, adding a little bit of that color or maybe highlighting, I'm just going to go through and finish that up. Okay, so I'm gonna lighten up the color. I'll start with white as the base, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of the magenta in with it, and then I'm gonna draw in the tiny little detail. So what I want to do with that is I can either use the line of my brush like this to draw them with, or I can use the tiny little brush. I'm going to draw a few of these with the brush that I have in hand, and then I'm going to change over and use the round one to show you how to do that. So I have 3 that are coming right now from the part of the back part of that flower. You can see how they're coming on the back side, and then I want a few coming off the front side. So I'm going to add a little bit of red, orange to the magenta, so that way I can bring another one overlapping right here and you can see it. So you can see the 3 from the back side, and maybe let's say we have 2 coming from the front. So that way you can see that there's distance between them. So if you happen to have it overlap just a little bit, all you have to do is just touch up with some of the dark alizarin. That way you can tell everything behind this dark line is behind, and everything in front of this space is on the front side, or actually the inside of the flower. So if you feel like you can't see it, you don't have to have it real showy, but if you want to see it a little bit more, all you have to do is add a little bit of the white right to the edge of it. Okay, so I'll change over and just let you see what it looks like to make these with the small round brush. I'm actually going to dip in the white. I'm going to roll the brush around right in the middle of that white blob of paint. And then I'm going to go into the magenta, and I'm going to round out the brush so I can make sure that it has a tip on the end of it. And then I'm going to draw. Now, I'll show you how to do one like this. You're going from here to there. I always like drawing the way something grows. So that means I would like to go from the inside of the flower like this to the outside of the flower. And that way you can see literally it's going from a smaller shape, from the bigger, thicker to a skinnier shape. And you can come up about an inch above where the flower is. And it would be a pretty natural size. So I did one, and so now I'm gonna have to dip my brush in water and roll out my paint again and do another one. I can change colors if I want to. I can have some more orangey or some more pink, some a little bit lighter, some darker, but they're generally all coming right out of the center of the daylily. And sometimes there's can be 7 or 8 of them. So just keep drawing them. If you want them to have a little purple, you can mix the purple in with the pink and you'll get a little bit different color that's fun. It's a little bit darker, and you might need that. That'll show you how some of them are further back than others. Some of them may be bigger than others. But the secret is just to figure out which brushes you like to use and how you like to use it. I had rather paint little lines with a flat brush like this instead of the round one. So I'm going to pick that back up and draw 1 or 2 more. And then I need to put the highlights in and the pollen in. So I'm just going to overlap a few of those. And so now that I have that ready for the pollen, I'm gonna pick up the yellow and white, and I'm just gonna dot it right on the tip of all those that I just made. And then I want some to look like that maybe there are a few more, some shorter, some longer, so I can do that. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Put a few of those on. Anytime you put something on it and it doesn't show up enough, you can go back and put a little lighter color on it, like a highlight, or you can put a darker color on it for a shadow line behind it, and I'm gonna do both. I just put the white, and now I'm gonna go in and put the black. I put a little black, but I added purple to it, so it's not quite so dark. And now I can come in and add just almost a line that looks like a comma, just on the end of it. Just a little tiny dark up there behind each one of the little white highlights. And now all the pollen is growing right out of that daylily. So I think I'll add one more little interesting balloon right here, and then we'll be through with this painting today. I like the look of these little extra ones coming out. We added one here, and now I'll finish up with this one. I'm just going to take my darker color. I had it on my brush, so it made it real easy for me to put the dark color on first. And then I'm going to take the light orangey color, put it right in the middle, and lighten it up with a little tiny highlight in the center, and I have it. So, now that you've finished painting your masterpiece, we want to see it. Please send us a picture either to our email at artcenterofwilmingtonisland@gmail.com or post it to our Facebook page. Keep visiting our Facebook page and our website to see the latest Art at Home kits. Thank you so much for supporting your neighborhood art studio.